are
They're leaning in.
Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified
Yeah.
of some kind of backlash. I mean, you see with Disney now. I mean, Disney, one of the most gay-friendly companies.
Okay, let's set the scene, babe.
So with Snow White, let's go through this, right? There's no prince. Woman doesn't need a prince.
Oh, Lord.
Really? Okay, good
Shut
luck back then.
While Disney was busy hyping up Snow White with million-dollar trailers, Twitter posts, and photo shoots dripping in feminist reboot branding, Joe Rogan was on his podcast literally predicting the flop in real time.
It's just so stupid. Like, of course you do. Doesn't need a prince to save her, and not surrounded by 7 weird people. Oh, okay, just CGI fictional goblins, I guess.
And not just vaguely like, this could underperform. No, he dragged it. Fully. He looked at the trailers, the promo interviews, the cast, the tone, and straight up said, this looks like a disaster waiting to happen. And what did people say at the time? He's out of touch. He's a hater. Joe Rogan doesn't get what Disney's doing, but fast forward to now, babe, he got it better than anyone at the studio apparently did. And let's not forget, this is a man who talks UFC, conspiracy theories, and elk meat. Not exactly your go-to Disney analyst, but when it came to this, he read it like a fairy tale gone wrong.
And I get it, there's a difference between spoiling and whatever, but to go out and badmouth everybody and talk smack about, older movies in the same franchise, the canon story, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I feel like they would have had better control over that.
Let's talk about the number that had Joe shook. And honestly, same. When news broke that Snow White had a production budget of $250 million, Rogan practically fell out of his chair. And can you blame him? He literally said, there are Marvel films with better CGI that cost less. This looks like it was rendered in 2011. He called the dwarves creepy. He dragged the visuals. He said the movie looked like it was shot on a green screen with no light source. And he was right, because when fans finally saw the trailer, the internet went feral. People roasted the effects, the flat colors, the weird pacing, and of course, the decision to replace the traditional 7 dwarfs with what looked like a last-minute casting call at Coachella. And remember, this was before the press tour even started. All Joe needed was one trailer and a price tag, and he already knew this movie was headed for disaster.
Then I can't bitch about it. This girl took the money and then decided that she wanted to go out there. And you know what? I'm going to take my stand. Well, you should have made that stand before you took the money to promote a film, because that's not in line with your job description.
Now this part is where it gets eerie, because Joe predicted, yes, predicted, that Rachel Zegler would become the movie's biggest liability. Not because she's not talented, he actually said she was, but because of the way she spoke about the role. He brought up her early interviews and was like, she doesn't even like Snow White. That's the energy. She's embarrassed by it. And woo, was he onto something? Because once Rachel started her now infamous press tour, it was full chaos. She mocked the original storyline, said the prince was weird, brushed off romance as outdated, and did it all with that "I'm better than this" energy that totally clashed with what audiences wanted. Rogan said it would alienate viewers, and that people weren't tuning in to see a re-education seminar. They wanted a fairy tale. That's it. Something soft, something nostalgic, something sweet. But what they got? A lead actress who openly said she wouldn't have watched the original and somehow expected fans to still show up for her reboot? Joe saw the disconnect before anyone did, and now it's the main storyline.
I think this is their policies coming back to bite them. They went woke.
Yeah.
She went out and said stuff woke that was going to hurt the film. They couldn't come out and go against her, because then you're going after somebody for saying what you say you believe.
When Joe first dropped his takes on Snow White, the internet did what it always does. It rolled its eyes. He was called a misogynist, a hater, a troll. Like, okay, Grandpa, go back to talking about aliens. But now, TikTok edits are surfacing, with timestamps of everything he said that turned out to be true. Clips titled "Joe Rogan literally saw this coming and Joe tried to warn us" are everywhere. Even the comments are giving, wait, this man predicted the entire plot twist. He knew this would flop before they even dropped the second trailer. Okay, but this is embarrassing for Disney now. The most ironic part? Rogan never claimed to be a movie expert. He just looked at it as an outsider and said, this feels fake. And the gag is, audiences ended up agreeing.
But at the same time, I think going forward, they're going to be like, hey, shut up.
Yeah.
Tight-lipped. Otherwise, guess what? We're clawing back some money.
Yeah. This would have been a lot better if they, had a strong male along with her, a prince, if it wasn't about socialism.
Okay, babe, here's the real reason why Joe's commentary hit so hard. He didn't just call the flop. He explained why Disney's magic isn't working anymore. On the podcast, Rogan said, This isn't storytelling anymore, it's corporate. Agenda in a costume, and honestly, that line hit. He dragged Disney for trying to lecture audiences instead of entertain them. He said the movie looked like it was created by a team of marketing execs trying to go viral on TikTok, not writers who actually care about fairy tales. And when you look at how Snow White was promoted, babe, he wasn't wrong. The entire narrative was about fixing the original Rachel Ziegler's press tour, focused more on what the old version got wrong than what the new one did right, and the trailers felt more like a brand pitch than a story. Teaser, it's giving focus grouped feminism with no heart. And that's what Joe called out, way before the internet started roasting it.
I think they could have done all that. Well, you want to call? Well, they could have done all that still. And as long as she had gone out and been like, well, we just have a different story. I like the old story, but we're doing a different one this time.
You're probably right.
I mean, the backlash would have been 10 times.
Yes.
You're probably right.
What's wild is how many people are now saying that Joe Rogan represented how they felt all along, especially the fans who didn't feel heard during the film's marketing blitz. There are literal Twitter threads saying, I don't even listen to Joe Rogan, but he was 100% right about Snow White. He said what Disney needed to hear, not what they wanted to hear. It's kind of iconic, because while Disney executives were patting themselves on the back for modernizing the story, Rogan was dragging their choices in front of millions of listeners and warning that audiences don't respond to movies. That feel like lectures. And now that the film has flopped, those clips of him calling it weeks in advance, they're going viral again.
That said, our primary purpose is to entertain, and where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world. But the first thing we need to do is entertain.
Okay, but girl, let's talk about that moment. When Joe jokingly said Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, should investigate the Snow White budget. Like, tell me why that joke is now its own meme online? He literally asked, who got paid $250 million to deliver this? Was it the squirrels from Chronicles of Narnia? And fans ran with it. There are edits with Rogan's face over Elon Musk's, fake DOGE investigations, mock financial audits of Disney, and even videos titled Joe Rogan Solves the Snow White Mystery, like he's the Sherlock Holmes of Hollywood breakdowns. And the gag is, he kind of is. He saw the bloat, the fake glitter, the empty storytelling, and called it all out before opening weekend.
Ben Platt, whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Ziegler.
For context, Variety wrote a report recently titled Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco, Death Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Ziegler.
This is where it gets a little scary. Because even though Rogan's quotes have gone viral multiple times, Disney has never addressed them, not even indirectly. No clapbacks, no rebuttals, no we stand by our film statements. And babe, that's telling. One industry insider even told Inside the Magic that Disney's internal PR team had strict instructions to avoid engaging with viral criticism, especially from figures like Rogan. Why? Because it could backfire hard. A response would only give it more oxygen, and Disney knew that if they acknowledged him, the story would explode even more. So instead, they stayed silent, let the fire burn, and hoped people would move on. Spoiler alert, they didn't.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
Here's where things get really interesting. Insider blogs, including the Hollywood Handle and MovieWeb, are now reporting that Joe's takedown of Snow White is actually influencing boardroom conversations. Not because he's a critic, but because he represents the voice of mainstream viewers. You know, the ones who don't live on film Twitter and just want a good movie on a Friday night. One exec, anonymously of course, told Variety, "We're being forced to reckon with feedback we usually dismiss. When someone like Joe Rogan says something and it ends up going viral because people agree, we have to listen. And that is power." Joe Rogan didn't just call a flop. He may have scared Disney into rethinking their strategy.
So even though woke in some sense feels like it's dead, it still has to run its course through the system. The ghosts have to get out of the machine in essence.
Babe, when Snow White crashed, it didn't just ruin Rachel Ziegler's career momentum, it rocked Disney's entire live-action department. According to multiple outlets, and confirmed by industry insiders, several upcoming live-action remakes were put on hold after the Snow White disaster. Yep, that includes Tangled, rumored Zendaya casting, shelved. The Princess and the Frog, yes. Tiana live-action, frozen. Hercules. Girl, they had TikTok influencers tied to that one. it's ghosted. Disney is reportedly now re-evaluating its remake pipeline, aka panicking behind closed doors, and realizing maybe Joe was right about the formula being broken. Studios rarely cancel projects this far into development, but this was bad enough to spook the Mouse House.
You think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarves want to work.
Okay, not everyone wants to say it out loud, but behind the scenes, Hollywood execs are actually listening to Joe Rogan. Like, unironically, the reason? He represents the average viewer. He's not on film Twitter. He's not writing think pieces. He's a pop culture outsider with a massive audience. And when his comments resonate with tens of millions of regular people who also think the movie looks cheap, the script sounds preachy, and the budget is a joke, studios notice. A source told The Hollywood Reporter, the problem isn't that Joe Rogan trashed the film, it's that so many people agreed with him. And now, Disney is reportedly adjusting marketing for future films to focus more on emotional storytelling and less on political framing, which is a polite way of saying, we got roasted and we're scared.
And auditorium is like an honest golden employment opportunity for dwarves.
There's not that many scripts that come down the pike.
Only 7 of them.
Joe didn't just predict Snow White flopping, he predicted the remake fatigue that's been building for years. He said, you can't just remake something with buzzwords and expect it to work. People know when it's fake. And now, that quote is haunting. Audiences are finally done with rewriting beloved characters with no charm over edited CGI messes, with no soul press tours filled with we fixed the problematic fairy tale energy, and films that feel more like brand protection than actual entertainment. Snow White was supposed to be the safe bet, the blueprint. If that one bombs, babe, the whole live-action game might be dead. And Joe knew it before the first poster even dropped.
But because I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, and this is right this is demeaning, and they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho, ho, ho.
Let's talk about damage control, because Disney is working overtime to save face. But the fans, they're seeing right through it. After the Snow White premiere plans were suddenly downgraded to low-key press-only events, the internet clocked it instantly. No big gala, no princess moment, no red carpet crown, just vibes and panic. They also scaled back merch releases, allegedly pulled themed park appearances, and started promoting Gal Gadot as the real star. Because guess what? She didn't go viral for dragging the original. Even then, fans on Reddit and TikTok are saying it's too little, too late. They don't want a cover-up. They want authenticity. And ironically, that's exactly what Joe said in the first place. If it doesn't feel real, people won't care, no matter how much you spend.
For Snow White, it's coming to terms with finding herself and finding her inner voice and finding a sense of agency so that she can be a just ruler and a wonderful queen, because there's another one in town.
Okay, this is where it gets iconic. Joe Rogan, Mr. UFC, elk jerky, and aliens might be real, is now being called the voice of reason in Hollywood criticism. And no one saw that coming. Why? Because he says what millions of moviegoers are thinking. Before the press, before the headlines, and definitely before the executives catch on, he doesn't care about spin. He calls out the bloat, the fake empowerment, the scripts that feel like LinkedIn posts. And this time, he was right. Publicly, loudly, repeatedly. Whether you love him or can't stand him, it's undeniable. He saw the crash, called it, and now the kingdom is shook.
It just takes a beloved movie and makes it much more boring and much less realistic. The movie is really, really bad.
Let's be honest, this wasn't just a box office flop. It was a cultural reset, just not the kind Disney wanted. Snow White wasn't supposed to fail. She was the blueprint, the original princess, the legacy character Disney built its entire empire on. And yet, she became the face of everything audiences are tired of: forced messaging, awkward rewrites, characters with no warmth, PR disasters wrapped in tiaras. And the most iconic twist? Joe Rogan saw it coming before the first ticket was even sold. He didn't just predict a bad movie, he called out a dying formula, one that used to guarantee billions, and now can't even sell a tiara in the merch aisle.
The primary suffering is being sent in by my company to watch a children's movie as a single man, like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That was the first part that was a little bit weird, but I was basically the only person in the theater.
Let's talk legacy, babe. Because Snow White didn't just damage this movie, it cracked Disney's brand armor. The one thing they used to do better than anyone: control the narrative, own the story, spin the fairy tale. But this time, the internet ripped the crown off. Audiences dragged the trailers. Commentators like Joe Rogan exposed the fake polish. The fans demanded substance over slogans, and Disney had no answer. And the silence now, it's loud. No redemption campaign, no theatrical. Rebound, no princess comeback arc. It's giving quiet burial.
Very few people wanted to see this. Even the little kids who like Disney movies, even they don't seem to be turning up in droves for the movie because the movie is really, really bad.
Here's the real tea. Disney could have listened to the backlash when it was still feedback. Instead, they treated it like noise, like people just not getting the vision. But guess what? The vision flopped. The receipts are public. The memes are forever. And now, the entire live-action remake lineup is being re-evaluated. Not because critics were too harsh, but because Joe Rogan and the internet agreed this is not it. So, will they change? Or will they keep editing? Magic out of the movies to fit boardroom buzzwords? Because girl, if they try to remake The Little Mermaid again with an AI seagull and no music, we riot.
And so I've got some bona fides here on being fair. The movie was absolutely terrible. In every way that the movie differed from the beloved 1937 original, it was worse.
Here it is. The final, dangerous, popcorn-spilling question: is the Disney magic gone? Because if Snow White can't be saved, not by a $250 million budget, not by A-list stars, not by a modern message, then what's left? A kingdom of reboots? A legacy of flops? Or a chance to actually start listening again? Joe Rogan might be the last person Disney expected to hold up a mirror, but he did. And what he reflected was a company too focused on perfection to realize it had forgotten how to tell a simple story that feels like home.
Basically, this movie was like you took the original Snow White and just put everything through this filter of liberalism. It wasn't through a filter of Japanese anime, it was through a filter of liberalism.
All right, babe, let's bring it to the comments, because I know you have thoughts. Do you think Joe Rogan was right all along? Was Snow White doomed from the start? And is Disney finally learning from this mess, or just quietly sweeping it into the vault with the other Oops movies? Drop your takes below. I want the hot ones, the spicy ones, the fan theories. You know I'm reading all of them. And if you love deep dives like this, celebrity chaos, studio scandals, and the truth behind the fairy tales, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you never miss the next Hollywood train wreck we break down in full princess core glory. Because in this town, the prince might not save you, but the internet will definitely roast you.